Hello Dragonfly Swarm. Bennett is undoubtedly one of the best characters in the game, and everyone kinda knows that already, but what people don't always know, or rather what they fail to figure out before it's too late, is that his C6 comes with some permanent and very detrimental effects to your account. Now, the severity of how bad it is to C6 your Bennett depends quite heavily on a few personal factors, such as what types of characters you enjoy playing and what your goal is in Genshin. But even despite the major potential drawbacks of his C6, a lot of players recently have begun to C6 him, and there's a valid reason for that, but I don't think it's a good idea, and I'm one of the C6 Bennett havers, so I figured I have enough information regarding this topic to make a video discussing everything you need to know about C6 Bennett, such as how he'll affect each aspect of your account, what the benefits are for certain characters, the permanent incompatibility it causes with others, and why I personally don't think it's a good idea to C6 him yet, unless you're under a specific mindset, which I'll cover in this video. But before we get into all of that, I am honored to present today's sponsor, a double whammy. Mech Arena and Raid Shadow Legends are my recent obsession while I'm waiting for my resin to refresh, and Mech Arena is a 5v5 mobile shooter where you literally get to pilot your own mechs that come with whack abilities and comfortable gameplay customization. My personal favorite mech right now is Shadow because it feels skill expressive, so I have room to learn and improve when I'm using his signature stealth ability, plus I like playing fast characters because they're always the coolest. But there are a handful of mechs to choose from, including support mechs and so on, so finding your favorite playstyle will not be difficult in Mech Arena. And then there's Raid Shadow Legends. I mean, come on, if you haven't heard of it, you're living under a rock. And it's actually a very well fleshed out game where you can collect, I think, like almost 700 champions to take into dungeons with millions of other players to fight things like dungeon challenges and clan bosses, and you can even PvP battle your friends, which if I had any, I would totally do that. But people probably wouldn't want to PvP me anyways, because my favorite is one of the strongest characters, Septimus. I like him because his Holy Sword attack is one of the best nuke abilities in the game, and I like when my enemies fast. But there's so much to love for different reasons about both games, so I couldn't not present the choice to you as well. Both are completely free to play, and if you scan my QR code on the screen or use the links in the description below, you can download Mech Arena to get a free $25 startup bonus with a Firelight skin, a Prodigy crate, and a Plasma Cannon 4, which should really help you get your feet on the ground for when you add me a nice sweep you right back off your feet with my sick Shadow gameplay. But also, using the Raid Shadow Legends link below will grant you a free $30 startup bonus with the epic champion Aina. Not as cool as my Septimus, but it's a start. 200,000 silver, 1 energy refill, an XP boost, and an ancient shard, so your Aina will catch up to me in no time at all. All those rewards and millions of potential friends are waiting for you eagerly, oh raid newbie. So get that game downloaded and I will see you on the field. So, a long time ago, and even now to a lesser extent, a lot of people advise against activating C6 Bennett, and this stems from its functionality with Genshin's older and less populated character roster. Basically, at C6, Bennett will now effectively apply Pyro Infusion to all Claymore, Sword, and Polearm users, and will apply a 15% Pyro damage bonus to all characters within his burst field. Yes, the Pyro damage bonus applies to all characters despite the way this ability is worded. But yeah, for the melee weapon users, they enjoy the Pyro Infusion, and I say enjoy sarcastically because a lot of them don't. Keeping in mind that Bennett can be slotted into almost any team in the game, back in early Genshin days, there were, I think, around 3 or so of those numerous teams that weren't completely ruined by C6 Bennett. The first being Sucrose National, because it didn't matter if any of these characters had Pyro Infusion, the goal of the team was simply to battery and buff one another for seamless and high DPS rotations. The second team that wasn't ruined by C6 Bennett was any team with a Pyro DPS unit, only because their teams were already built around Pyro Infusion or high Pyro interactions, but that would have required you to have pulled Diluc, Klee, or later Yanfei. And then the third team, well, a summarized version of the third team, was the very few DPS units that actually took infusion priority over Bennett's C6 by converting their attacks or changing their attack stance, which at that time was only Xiao, Noelle, and Child. So yeah, every other available DPS at that time, including prominent Bennett enjoyers such as Chongyun National, Eula, Razor, Physical Shinyan, DPS Chi-Chi, Physical Rosaria, and Kaya, etc., were effectively completely locked out of Bennett's teammate slot because of the Pyro Infusion, because said infusion would force them to lose out on a large elemental or physical damage multiplier on their attacks. And technically, this issue didn't stop showing up with characters until the end of Ayaka's release, because even she was coded as a cryo infuser, not a cryo converter, so she too can be locked out of playing with Bennett. Not that Bennett typically plays a role in her strongest teams, since those are generally freeze teams, but he's still good with her before C6. And the biggest problem that tops the cake with the many characters I just mentioned is that to this day, 2 years after Genshin's release, Hoyoverse has not tweaked a single one of them to remedy this incompatibility compatibility issue. A lot of players assumed Bennett's C6 would be redesigned or just straight up allowed to be toggled, especially considering the vast majority of the global player base's consensus that C6 Bennett would ruin your account, and back then, depending on your character preference, it genuinely would, and genuinely still could. So why in the ever-loving redacted are players still C6ing him now more than ever? Well, because Genshin's character roster has significantly changed, and by extension, so has its meta. But let me explain that. After Ayaka's release, the next DPS characters we were introduced to were Yoimiya, Raiden, Ito, Ayato, Heizo, and if you're feeling quirky, DPS Kokomi. Raiden, Ito, and Ayato as melee weapon wielders should technically suffer from C6 Bennett's infusion, but they don't, because each of these three characters perform full attack talent conversions, not just simple elemental infusions. Thus, Bennett can't override them, and they don't lose out on his massive potential with them. And Raiden specifically plays a huge factor in this topic because she completely shifted the meta of Genshin Impact with her introduction to the game, thus leading us into a meta where C6 Bennett coincidentally works just fine in. Raiden National doesn't care if Bennett is C6, nor does nearly any other Raiden team, and as for the other characters, all of which have had some impact on the game, they too just happen to either not care if Bennett is C6 or actually quite enjoy Bennett's C6. Take Yoimiya for example, who actually benefits pretty nicely from Bennett's C6 pyro damage bonus, as her kit really enjoys multiplicative damage buffs like this. The calculation on the screen shows that in a vape team, she'd typically be seeing around 6% more total damage with C6 Bennett, which isn't a bad increase at all considering most really big increases only end up being around 10 or 20% more damage usually. And in general with pyro DPS units this will be the case, but also take for example new-ish characters like Kazuha, who many players now have thanks to his rerun. Before C6, the only way to play Kazuha as a genuinely viable main DPS is by running him with some sort of infusion, which Bennett supplies comfortably, granting him what will typically be a 21% overall increase to his damage ceiling even at C0 if you want to turn him into a main DPS. But also, with the help of Kazuha, Shinyan can also flex as a pyro DPS thanks to C6 Bennett, and it typically competes very closely with her physical DPS playstyle while being much less of a headache to work with, in my opinion. So basically, in modern Genshin Impact, the premier characters in the meta that we're currently in and have been in for upwards of a year now don't dislike C6 Bennett, which is in stark contrast to Genshin's older meta. I hate the word meta, I just mean generally agreed upon strongest teams. So for most players, there's this new sense of comfort and safety in C6ing Bennett because many of the characters they see advertised and advocated for don't really need to worry about their compatibility with him being lost by C6, but that is kinda dangerous. And it brings me to my next point, which is why this current wave of C6 Bennett lovers could potentially become a problem. Could, not will, because I can't see the future and neither can you. But the problem with C6ing your Bennett is that currently you cannot undo it at all. Once you've C6'd him, you are stuck there forever. And that means even in the future, if for example a new character that you really like comes out and they happen to work really well with Bennett until he C6 and he overrides their infusion. Because like I said, it's not entirely just older characters that suffered from C6 Bennett. Even Ayaka suffers from it, and although Kuki Shinobu is by no means a strong character, some people like playing her as a physical DPS because of her respectable normal attack scaling, attack speed, and easy access to superconduct, which makes her great with regular Bennett and completely incompatible with C6 Bennett. And that's an issue that doesn't seem to be high on Hoyoverse's list of fixes. In fact, it might not even be seen as a problem at all to them, because like I said earlier, they haven't made a single change to this interaction, which makes myself and many other players wonder if they ever will. Not that it seems outlandish for them to add a constellation toggle feature, but rather it seems so simple to add that it's really weird that they haven't already done it. So the big question is, if you were at all on the fence about activating Bennett C6, is it worth doing it? Well, like most things in Genshin, it kinda depends, but also not really. If you're positively uninterested in physical DPS units and are willing to gamble that Hoyoverse may never add another regular infusion DPS again, or at least not one that you'd like to play, technically there can be no harm in C6ing your Bennett. Technically. As we discussed, his incompatibility lies with those types of characters only, and although it's still quite detrimental to lock yourself out of playing one of the best supports in the game on a large chunk of his best teams, there's no telling what new teams he'll have access to in the future and how quickly those teams will grow. And there's also no telling what Hoyoverse plans to do about the problems with his C6, or if they have any plans at all. So my definitive answer is I think it's still an objectively very bad idea to C6 your Bennett for as long as we're unsure if it'll ever be toggleable. The 5 to 7% damage increase on pyro units is nice, and while it can be fun and sometimes quite lucrative to run niche pyro DPS units like Kazuha, Shinyan, Unfilled Xiangling, etc., neither of these things at all warrant permanently locking yourself out of other very powerful current and future teams. Bennett is a god tier character prided heavily for his versatility, so until we know more about any potential plans to remedy his C6, I personally would hold off on activating it. Not that I did, but if I had known before, I would have. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video or it helped you in any way with your decision towards Bennett's doom, don't forget to like and subscribe, because it really helps my channel out. And also, I'm back to streaming on Twitch every now and then, so I'm gonna leave a link to my channel below if you want to stop by sometime and hang out. But for now, I'm gonna have to go pack for my LA trip, and hope to God I don't have to speak to anyone at the airport, because I have crushing, catastrophic, cataclysmic social anxiety.